Welcome to this new series I like to call the Collection Tour. Anyway, to start the first episode, I'm going to do something kind of simple, and that is my entire handheld collection, as in consoles, not phones or anything like that. Before we start though, I want to give an honorable mention to the original Nintendo 3DS because I used to have one, and I unfortunately don't have it anymore. Because good old 11-year-old me just couldn't stop dropping it, and yeah, eventually it became unusable. But while we're at the topic of the 3DS, my new 3DS XL. I've used this thing pretty frequently before, as you can obviously tell by that circle pad missing its rubber piece. But it still works, and it's still quite the beast. I forgot I had that background, god damn it. Alright, the next system I have is another new 3DS XL. Yep, and it's the rare green one, and it's a Japanese mod. It is also modded and has a bigger SD card in it, so I mainly use this one for my 3DS sort of deal. But I'm not using the other one at least. Speaking of the 3DS, the original Nintendo DS. Yeah, I gotta say, this one is definitely a chonker. Look how thick that one is. At least it's comfy to hold. And surprisingly, it still works. Next up, I've got the DS Lite, which is the one I actually unboxed previously. So it's the Japanese one. I do need to get it fixed on the R button, and it feels a little too loose, but otherwise, this thing works perfectly fine. And now we're on the final DS, the DSi, specifically the DSi XL. Somehow this thing feels bigger than the new 3DS XL, at least to me. And yeah, this thing is huge. Look at that. Alright, next handheld is the good old Game Boy Pocket. And the next Game Boy I have is the good old Game Boy Color. And I gotta say, this one's a little comfier than the Game Boy Pocket, just because of the rounded back on it. It's thick as hell. Alright, next up is my favorite Game Boy, the Game Boy Advance. This is actually the Game Boy Advance model I prefer, even if it doesn't have a backlight on it. You could probably just mod one, but I don't have the skills for that, but you know. I find it more comfy, and it just looks cooler than the SP model. Speaking of which, here is the Game Boy Advance SP with the backlight screen. One of my favorite things to do on a Game Boy Advance is actually use software to turn any video into a Game Boy Advance ROM. First off is my old Nintendo Switch Lite that I used to use on a daily basis until I got my current Switch. And as I mentioned, I have a current Switch. It's the OLED model. Got the sickest skin for it. Alright, finally we're on to Sony. First up is obviously the PSP. Nice chunky PSP with the discs. Why do I have Charlie's Angels in my PSP? Okay. Next up we have the only other PSP, the 3000 model. I really prefer this one just because the buttons are a little bit more responsive, the screen is brighter, and because it's slimmer. Oh my god. I did a video on this previously, and I still am horrified how much I paid for it. The PSP Go. I spent $200 on this damn thing. Oh yeah. The screen started to split. Not what you want to see when you spend $200 on this damn thing. But it still works fine, at least. It still slides up and down. Next up is my favorite handheld. Well, one of them anyway. Aside from the Switch and GBA. The PS Vita. Good god, I love the PS Vita. This is a Japanese 2000 model that I bought off a friend. And oh my god, I've sunk so much time into this. I wish I had one back then. Now finally, we're on to my most recent handheld, and that is the Valve Steam Deck. Yeah, I pretty much bought this off my partner, and needless to say, I've been having a great time with it, as you can tell. And that's about it. That is my entire handheld collection. Hope you guys enjoyed. I need to drink some water because my throat is itchy now. Bye.